Cool. Welcome everyone to Verify and Release Design Review weekly session. And we are having a couple of interesting items on the agenda. So Veethika, I'll just hand it over to you if you would like to share that one.
Sure, I would start sharing my screen right away. All right, so in the agenda, you would see two links in the feature link. The two things that I would be talking about today is number one, the public facing issue for gathering feedback for the DAG MVC that was very recently released. And the other one is a discussion issue, which was kind of a backstage thing for this first one. That's where we were trying to figure out what should go in the public feedback issue that would catalyze the community engagement and so on. So yeah, it was a very new approach for me because this is the first time that uh, I had a chance to conduct research in something that could be participated by community users, like a public issue. So I had started off with consulting with Laurie around what the discussion guide should look like and what are the things that we should be considering. And it was a pretty lengthy discussion, but before it could come to an end, the feature was released and the link was activated for the issue. So we had to hurry a bit and put information on the other one in a haste. A few things that I did here was I looked at some previous research solution validation issues by other teams, and I tried to observe like what are the good practices. I mean, what have people done in the past that has worked out for them? And one thing was putting the questions in threads, like as separate comments, so that they can have separate trails for each one of them. And so eventually, when I would be transferring these feedback to, let's say, a mural board for affinity mapping, I wouldn't have to put in a lot of effort. I did that, but unfortunately, it didn't work out so well for me. I would get to that. Just to give a brief context about the DAG visualization, just in case. So, what DAG does is when it comes to pipelines, the jobs, they are not always communicating in a streamlined fashion. There could be scenarios in which the communication is very interlinked, and even though it could be visualized, it would be very difficult for users to make sense of the visualization and follow the connections and the triggers. So that's where that comes into picture. It simplifies the interaction for users with the visualization so that they could get the exact information that they want from it. Now, we began with a set of assumptions, but what happened through this is that I observed that there's another set of assumptions that we didn't even know we had. For example, if you look at the designs for DAG everywhere, you would see this horizontal visualization. But from some of the comments, it kind of surfaced that in majority of the cases, the length of the visualization is exceeding the width. So there's been a conversation if it would make more sense if we turn this by 90 degrees. So, that's one. And then we had some questions about the colors which are being used. Like if you look at this, there's a lot of colors because it's a very complex uh, pipeline. Um, it turned out, first of all, that uh, it's most of the colors which are being used here, which are from the charts colors from pajamas, they were probably not all of them had gone through the accessibility testing, even though there was a huge effort around it. And the users who only end up seeing brown pipes crossing each other, which is like, I feel, which is a huge problem for us. Then, yeah, like I was saying, I tried putting all of these questions in different comments, but looks like they were very royally ignored throughout. Nobody commented on any one of them. But nonetheless, we got a lot of inputs on this and very good comments that would definitely allow us to improve this feature going ahead. So I was discussing about the next steps with Tao on this, and it seems like um, even though there is no hard stop that we would be communicating to our users for providing their feedback on this. But internally for ourselves, we would still, let the feedback flow in for another 2 weeks or 2.5 weeks, and then try to analyze the feedback and come up with some actionable points for ourselves so that we can work on them for the upcoming milestones. That's the progress for now. And yeah, there was a lot of learning involved in this entire exercise. And that's all I have to share for this.
Just before we're gonna go into any discussions, do you have any like questions to the team? Any questions you are like looking for answers, and maybe they can help answering, or we can have a small brainstorming around?
I would definitely like to know if somebody has a past experience with what do I say? Moderating the discussions that happen in these public issues. Because that's one point that I'm facing problems with. Yeah.
I'd say that's undoable almost. I would like, it's gonna be a mess regardless. It's yeah. I think it's very difficult, and I'm. I mean, we can kind of be certain, right, that they come in at the top of the issue through the feedback link. So you could test, but I really wonder. Like the sub discussions have been has been a long point of the case where people are not aligning on like, all right, I'll answer in the sub discussion, partly because some people, at least in GitLab, are answering through email or something like that, where you don't even see sub discussions. But otherwise, people just like, they just want to be, easy comment. Easy comment is at the bottom of the page. That's it. That's the only thing they will see.
Okay. Thanks.
And you are referring to the unanswered comments right now, Dimitri, on the issue, or?
I think this is kind of like a common case, right? Like we have all had these issues where we have put down multiple comments for people to answer, and they just see the last one and answer that one and forget about all the rest. It's a theme, like it's hard. It's a hard problem to crack.
Yeah, I think something that can help is always like point your question to somebody. Like if you ask a question, tag people who you think can have answers. If that's like technical question, tag one of your engineers. If that's product related, tag PM. If that's even UX, you can tag the whole our team. Yeah, or like specific designers. I think tagging some people help. Maybe somebody else has other advices how to not have these cases.
Yeah, and then just looking at the thread and the issue, I would say keep the source of truth updated, for example, with the teams or like some learnings or findings that you already have. Because maybe if people are, just discussing the same thing over and over, you have too much feedback, you can point to them that, these are the things that we already discussed in the issue description. Because the longer the conversation gets, the less people are going to refer to what's in the middle, right, of that much content.
Right. Yeah. And I think that again comes back to a moderation issue. So one has to actively keep a check that people don't engage in a similar conversation again and again, and read what's been discussed above.
Yeah. One thing that we do in release management is that whenever Jackie sees that there is customer feedback somewhere, she schedules a call with these people, and then you get all the context in 30 minutes, 45, rather than going over and over in a thread. That also might be helpful if you find these figures that are really involved with the issue.
Another thing that I try to do is if they comment, I address them, even if I don't have if I don't have like a reply from them. I try to kind of like at least check mark them and say like, okay, that makes sense. We're gonna have that in mind, or I'm adding this to the discussion next week or whatever. Something that allows them to see that their comment was seen by someone from the GitLab team. Because like, I think that's the way to encourage them to keep leaving these comments. If they feel that they are just like talking in a vacuum and no one's paying attention, then like they're not gonna comment again. You know, we want them to be always bringing their thoughts and opinions. So I definitely try to, at the very least, like with an emoji, but definitely I try to, you know, just reply to them with something.
Yeah.
Okay.
And also from my experience, people are always going to be entitled, of course, of an opinion, but it's up to you to say, okay, I have enough material now, let me regroup, and then, yeah, get back to them with a different proposal or with with a part of a solution. Because you're gonna be like keeping track of the threads. It's, yeah, that's very hard, like what Dimitri said.
All right. There's one more small thing. So I think somewhere here I am on the wrong issue. I had, yeah, I transferred comments from the Slack thread. So there was a parallel discussion going on the Slack thread, which Tao had to intervene and make them stop and had to redirect them to the issue. It was getting like very intense. They kept on going on and on about certain things. So what I moved from Slack to here was everything that concerns UX and research. But so I also have comments like the hover effects, OMG, like the emojis that came in. So Tao feels, I think, a little differently about this. She thinks that maybe we should only have actionable stuff. But in my opinion, like these small little things help us to understand like what worked out, and they would probably also help us in taking decisions in the future about like what are the things that made a positive impact on the users, and how what are the things they reacted positively towards. So I would want to know the reaction of everyone else.
I agree with putting everything there, especially that it's like raw feedback, right? And you can link to a Slack thread. It's gonna disappear in the next 90 days. But I think it's valid, really putting information unfiltered in the, especially in the comments. And if something, for example, as the hover effects are worth a follow up, you open an issue about that, or you can group all um, this in an epic or something. I do that quite a lot, especially I think when I was working with detached pipelines, there was a lot of feedback in Slack, and we treat that as customer insight, customer input, because we are using GitLab, right? We are dogfooding it. So I see the value.
Okay,
Agreed
thanks.
as well. I think like if you change the words, you will put in some personal bias,
Yeah,
and it is worthwhile to reference to the original comment, I think.
great. Okay. So if, any other follow-up questions on this? If not, then I can stop sharing. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thanks for sharing, Veethika. It's really interesting to see how this feature is going. I guess it's going to be a big learning for us. Maybe, yeah, I would be even curious to run a little retrospective around that, because I know it was a little bit of a complicated process, and I know you kind of like arrived in the middle of that. So, you know, probably would be very helpful if you would be noting all of kind of like the issues, the good things, the bad things that you have seen, and later if you could debrief it, probably even among the team, or at least between me and you. That would be a really good, that would be very useful for me to see how can we avoid some of the things that we've done here and improve the next time. Not saying that it's all bad, of course. It's great to see that we are moving in the direction, but thanks a lot for sharing.
Thank you.
So we still have some time, and Rayana, I've seen that you put another item for the future. Not sure if you intend to share it today. If we have time, maybe it's not yet ready, but let me ask.
Damn it! I shouldn't have put anything there. I didn't even put the the links.
Yeah. No, if that's not ready, I'm totally chill with that as well.
No, it's okay. It's okay. It's just because I'm still kind of like trying to think about exactly what I want to get feedback on. So maybe if anyone, yeah, if people have a topic where they really want to get feedback, you can take over. If not, I can share my screen.
We couldn't discuss it this morning, right, Ayana?
Okay, let's do it. Let me open up my Figma file first. This is regarding the CI/CD group dashboard, directed dashboard. Name is still pending. Jackie and I are calling it CI/CD dashboard. So treat it like that. So just for some context, let me find the issue here. Hold on. CI/CD dashboard. Just for context, where is my, we moved here. Okay, here. Our managers, directors, people that need, to manage multiple projects across different groups. They don't really have an overview right now with GitLab that allows them to see how their projects are doing, right? You have all these different views where you can see environments, where you can see releases, you can see deployments, but everything on a project level. And we want to give users the ability to, on a group level, so for example, with GitLab level, see the past pipeline for all projects, or to see the last five deployments, the last 5 releases, upcoming releases, etc. So that these users, these directors, they can have, of course, a better overview of everything that's going on in their projects or in their groups, but also that when we look at other tools or competitors, this is something, once we have this ability, something that's really going to bring us closer to tools such as Zibia Labs, right? Where you can do everything and in a way manage the information around your releases. So that being said, I added here this, let me just double check. Yes, Director CI/CD dashboard. This was actually validated by Jackie, I think a couple of months ago, when she was interviewing customers around managing release at the group level, also deployments. But also we have a research issue or a research insight open 2 years ago. Let me add here that already say directors or users need the ability to track project status at a group level. So the CI/CD dashboard right now, we are looking at displaying 5, and I should be sharing my screen, but I'm not. I'm like, oh, here. Let me go here. Yeah. So this is a bit too much. Yes. So we are looking at displaying 5 main metrics in this dashboard, which is like the number of releases, or like a total count of releases in all projects that belong to a group, the percentage of projects that have releases, the last 5 passed and failed pipelines, the duration of the last 30 pipelines, for example, in the specific group. So these are very, well, low fidelity mockup. Jackie actually put this together and was really helpful to help me visualize her perspective from this dashboard. And if you're familiar, I think like Nadia can also say that if you look at tools like Zibia Labs, they're very powerful dashboarding features, right? So when I look at this, I feel like, yeah, the problem is solved itself. We have all these endpoints that we can just connect to whatever graphs and show on the UI. And then here we have a dashboard. And that's actually what we're gonna do for the MVC, just bring some graphs and yeah, here's your static dashboard on a group level where you can see the health of specific projects. So users are not going to have the ability to customize this dashboard for now. But then when I start looking at this, it becomes a bigger problem, because we know that dashboards with GitLab are a bit of, I don't want to say problem, but they're inconsistent. And Nick is working on, Nick Post is working on, how does it call? Like the analytics pajamas component initiative. And that's awesome. I'm also involved there, and we have, I think, monthly conversations around pajamas and dashboards, etc. But I think the main challenge to me is that to define the vision for the now, the low-hanging fruit. Because when I start looking at dashboards at the group level, and this is what I have on the screen here, is that there's at least 4 ways to show and display data right now in the product. And when I think about the MVC and what we need to deliver, maybe in 2-3 milestones, this is probably going to be like a 2-year long effort. My current struggle, and that's maybe something that my designer friends can help me, is to look at, when I look at the product right now and I see all these different dashboards, what is the simplest, easiest way to just create this CI/CD group dashboard without having to redesign it in 6 months, knowing that the pajamas components are being improved, and that there is discussion around this dashboard design, that the secure team is doing different things, that analytics components are being built. Please feel free to stop me and ask anything, because I know that it's quite a lot. So what I did here, and then this file has pretty much everything that Jackie and I have been working on, but just in a visual way. So we know, for example, that in organizations like GitLab, we need to give this group level visualization of project statuses, that we can easily aggregate these metrics in the UI, but questions other than the UI aspect. What is the ideal workflow for users that are tracking metrics at the group level, right? We don't really have anything that's solid right now in the product. Where do they want to access this thing from? Should this live in an instance level or at the group level? How do users want to compare metrics in a single view? What metrics they want to prioritize and why? What additional interactions can we already foresee? And how do they want to stay informed? Like, do they want to take any actions on this, on the interface? Do they want to follow up, like create issues, fix things from this dashboard view? Those are I started inflating the problem because I think that's going to be interesting for the future. And then before I go back to the UI, just give you an overview of the jobs to be done. Like, super simplified is to find this dashboard, compare the metrics, and then in the future, add metrics, add projects, customize view, share metrics. We're not even talking about these things right now. So we really focus on this one job to be done. Oops, sorry, not this one, which is see and compare these metrics, and in a way link it with other product areas. So let's go back to what I want your opinion from, more or less, because it's way too much in my head right now. So I'll start with the analytics dashboard. This is like what's implemented in the product. I know that this, for example, the secure team, there is a change in the secure dashboards. I think the operation dashboards, that it's in master. It's going to be released this week, but it's not in the product yet. So with all these things I told you, when I look at these dashboards, I started looking at the thinking of the positives and negatives of these views, this UI, let me share views, compared to what we want to do for this CI/CD group dashboard. So for example, the analytics view, when you land here, there is a, I'm sure if you can see, it's a drop-down menu. And then when you click select page, you can select issues dashboards, merge request dashboard, whatever, and that updates the UI. This is one. Then we have the value stream analytics dashboard, that it's a bit more complex, but then I think developers are working on GraphQL, but the performance of this dashboard is really, it takes a lot of time to load all this content. And I wonder that the more we add things to the group dashboard, the CI/CD group dashboard, I'm already worried about performance, but that's for the future. And then we have the security dashboard that is being updated. I saw some designs from Andy that is similar to the previous one, but again, it loads like 1,000 items at a time, and it doesn't really give that dashboard look and feel. And of course, last but not least, the environments dashboard. Dimitri, you know this. This hunted us for a couple of milestones. It's there. People use it, but they cannot really get any value from it. it's a copy of the operations dashboard. So the environments dashboard, you have these cards, and then you can see, yeah, you add projects, and then you can see the status of the last past environment and the last deployment. And you can see it's a card view. So when I look at all these things and I start thinking about what would be the CI/CD group dashboard, I feel cornered. That's how I feel right now. Cornered with the 4 or 5 different dashboard types in GitLab, and what should I take as the source of truth for this new dashboard. So I'm not gonna go into details here, but I just try to put the data that we want to display. So for example, as I mentioned before, total count of releases, number of upcoming releases, like this graph with comparison of historical versus upcoming releases, last 5 updated releases, last 5 pass and fail pipelines, etc. on the UI. And then using this different dashboard views that we have implemented in the product. So this one is like static, it loads everything in one page. Second one has that odd drop down that I think that doesn't really give users like much discoverability about the options. And if you want to compare things, you have to click load wait. And same thing, but yeah, tabs. This is still like a first version, and I already ran this over Nadia and Jackie, and there is a consensus that we want to have everything in one view, and I'm going to prototype this for the validate with users. So that's, you know, layer of navigation to you land in a dashboard, you click a drop down, and then you select what you want to see. It's a bit, yeah, it's an overkill. But broad questions based on this story I told you. Is anyone working on dashboard? That's the first thing. If so, yeah, let's talk about it. And kind of similar to Veethika's question, have you worked with something like a redesign that is this challenging in the past? And what direction did you take for that? Because yeah, we're going to start implementing this soon. And my gut feeling says that we're just going to have to redesign the whole thing. And this is a new feature. So I feel like I'm coming from a place where I want to start with, you know, following the best approach for dashboarding with GitLab. So that being said, go.
I have a follow-up question for this. So of course, I'm not very aware of this type context, but from what you told, I do get some idea. My understanding of a dashboard is people want to see what makes sense for them, and that changes from role to role. So are you giving this freedom to the users here to maybe reprioritize the tiles or the section?
No, not for now. So the MVC, the main goal is to just display the data on the interface. So we already validated which data points to show. So that's 5 last releases in a project, 5 last failed and passed pipelines, total count of releases, number of upcoming releases, and I think the comparison, upcoming versus actual released items. But I discussed this with Nadia last week, that I feel that as a group, like in release management, we could be spending more time looking at, yeah, this, how did you just call, the flexibility that we want to give users, because that's going to be the real power of the dashboard, and not necessarily what data points to add in the UI. But to answer your question, no, we're not giving any flexibility right now.
Okay.
What do you people think about the consistency question as well? We have so many components, places, like even if we would be knowing which dashboard we would want to build, like what components should be used for this, and making sure that we will not have to change everything again in like 6 months of time.
I also have that struggle because I'm also building dashboards right now. But I mean, perhaps I didn't get Rayana's question on well, but like, do you feel that you're gonna build something that like it's gonna be like widely redesigned eventually, or like your concern is just like a consistency, like a low, like a minor details in the consistency that are gonna change as we keep evolving?
Yeah, it's both. It's not necessarily when I mention components, it's not really like the pajamas component, but the how do you call that? The overall layout of the dashboard. Because when I look at the dashboards right now at GitLab, I'm not sure the most recent ones, the ones for security, but I look at them and I'm not sure if there was any design thinking behind those dashboards. They're really just data on the UI. And I feel that if we just replicate that, because we probably, Jack is investigating that, but we probably don't have much data on usage or adoption. That's where I'm coming from. I'm afraid, just like the environments dashboard, that we're just creating that one thing just for the sake of having a dashboard
Yeah.
that it's not usable, and that's where we are not. We are going to spend time now. We're scheduling some time to do that, but to look at the direction of the dashboard. But then when I
your
look,
designs do take into account like consumption of information and usability and everything. So like I wouldn't worry too much about it, because if anything, what you're doing, it's gonna become the standard. Like I actually was gonna tell you later if you can share those designs with me, because they look pretty good. So I'll probably emulate those styles and that layout that you have there. So I mean, my take is like you should like do the best, and that, and like I think everyone will follow. So one example is that I think I will like replicate that type of layout that you're using there. I mean, that's the way that I see it, but maybe that's too, yeah, I don't know. Maybe it's because we're in the same team and we have visibility. Someone else is gonna build a different dashboard, and then like they're gonna see yours, and it's gonna be like, oh wait, that looks way different, right? So
yeah,
that could be the problem.
and I think that's what we see, like from the past, the lack of alignment. It's why we have so many ways to visualize metrics across the product, like group level, instance level, project level, whatever. But that's definitely one of my goals, is to make this proposal, but even before putting in front of users, align internally and see what direction other designers and other teams have for dashboarding. And I linked here, just FYI, I linked here this other issue that it's for identifying CI, the components for the dashboard. So looking at the metrics that we want to display, what GitLab UI components that exist today we can reuse. So when I mentioned like this granular effort of building, we don't want to build components. We just want to use whatever is there to display something in the UI. And I think that would be, yeah, that's the low hanging fruit. But I still feel that, yeah, dashboards are very dangerous. Dashboards and tables. When you have to build them, they're always going to give you a headache. And in general, I'm saying all those things because I feel like I still have a lot of questions that I need to clarify about how to better align the direction of this dashboard with, the existing efforts that are now they're being driven by other teams. And I agree with you, Juan, saying like, yeah, if you design and people use, that's what's gonna kind of drive the, yeah.
Yeah, but I was thinking that even like the design, like the pajamas doesn't have guidance on this. So I think we should start there, at least, like how to build a dashboard, like what's the, like in general, something that pajamas is missing, and we can actually talk with Tori about it, is like layouts. Like they don't have any guidance on layouts, like
Yeah.
when you're gonna build a dashboard, or when you're like presenting information, like like they have like zero guidance on that. You could put like things randomly, and like there's no guidance.
Actually, this would be one of the questions. Juan, you mentioned Tori, and I'm curious, Hannah, did you like just, I don't know, like made this problem known to foundation teams? Like because it sounds you're being faced with like slightly bigger problem that, you know, like the bigger than one stage group, of course. And it's like, we have to for sure make people aware of that, and maybe even go back with Jackie to the, well, drawing board and say, hey, you know, like, don't, uh, shouldn't we solve first the other issues? Or at least like have an alignment there. I understand that she probably has this on her roadmap, but
Yeah, we aligned yesterday on that, and we're gonna do, as I mentioned before, let's just put this thing live, and then let's start an effort to ideate, and then, you know, do the design, because we have the same challenge with the environments dashboard, where we have bugs and enhancements, but I know that dashboard doesn't work. Like, how are you gonna paginate a dashboard that has cards within a group? And then you have to show, like, imagine that you have a project with I don't know, 2,000 environments, and then you can add 100 projects to a dashboard. So the information, it's just not scalable. So the more I work with dashboards now, I feel that let's just do whatever we have to do, but then across GitLab, and that's something, yes, definitely to align with UX foundations, but also with the designers that independently are working on dashboards to maybe identify the common low-hanging fruits. Are we working on layouts now and delivering guidelines for pajamas, and then building, you know, one, for example, the CI/CD dashboard as the vision, and then once it's implemented, teams can reuse that to redesign their own dashboard. Because right now I feel that we're all doing different things, and yeah, summarize, we're gonna do, just deliver, just do it. And I'm starting prototyping a version to put in front of users, and then I work with Lori on my God, with the question thingies. I always forget the name of it.
It seems so contradictory to me to some extent that we know, like, we're just going to push it out there. We're just going to work with the existing components, and we're going to do the minimal possible. But on the other hand, we don't want to rebuild our interfaces in 6 months to a year time. We want to have alignment and consistency across stage groups. And we want to have components which basically solve those two problems if we iterate on those components. However, none of the stage groups are willing to invest in creating those stage groups. And we all put it in the fulfillment team, or what was it again, Nadia? You said the team.
UX Foundation?
Sorry?
foundation team, right?
Yeah, the foundation team. So like we're trying to see if there's an alternative around building components, but to be honest, I don't think there is.
I wouldn't call it alternative to building components. I would say that we are missing a plan, alignment, discussion, you know. And on one hand, I understand, like, again, it's always a compromise between business users and the company goals, right? Yeah, maybe, for example, if there is an urgency or urge, and Jackie wants to put something out there, and in the meantime to start collecting feedback, I agree that it's not the perfect solution in every case, but it depends how much effort we want to involve. Like, yeah, it's a tough question, but I would understand why we want to get something out quickly there, and then just use the time that we need to make a plan and iterate. It's a tough one, but
Yeah.
it definitely, I think we're missing a plan and alignment here.
Yeah, because when I go, I'm not sure if you folks ever attended the analytics call, like for the pajamas component analytics. We are constantly like bringing this, the new items or future things from other teams. So for example, this analytics dashboard, so they are changing it, and they are giving the user the flexibility. I think it's actually in one of the UX showcase slides, to just customize what dashboards or what data you can see from the GitLab CI. And I keep wondering, why are we not just building on top of that? Like, why are we not allowing users to just put some data in their GitLab, in the CI file, and then render the data, this dashboard, in the same view, like analytics, and then you, boom, release insights. So we build on top of what the analytics team is doing, right? Rather than building our own dashboard. And I agree with Nadia that sometimes there's a lot of independent and most of the time, a lot of independent initiatives. And then once everything's out there, like I had yesterday or today, with a new button to assign to a user. Once it's out there, people see, and they were like, "What is this? This could be better. This should be different." So I do agree that we need more alignment, but that takes time. And there is a research insight from 2 years ago saying that users need a group view dashboard. So I understand and I agree that we should just give it to them. And if they are using it, or at least if there is some adoption, I think that's what's going to fuel, the argument of let's do a redesign, or let's invest in more validation or more prototyping. And then maybe other teams can also get insights, feedback from user interface, from usability, etc. But then it's a bit of it's a struggle. Yeah. Very sad topic, I know.
I made everyone think.
I told you I didn't want to talk about it. I was like, it's just sad.
No, but I think it's a great case for also for future to learn. So yeah, it sounds like the next actions for you, Rayana, is to work with Jackie to see what is that MVC that you can release, and then you will be working with other teams in GitLab to align to find to build maybe the strategy there. Would be very interesting to observe this case and see if we could help, or if any feedback or something could be done from our side, because this is a great example of things that probably will be coming up from time to time with different features. So
yeah, we have I have Maria and also Nadia, the other Nadia. She's also working on dashboarding and analytics. Nick and Andy. So these are the people that I have to get in touch with, that I know so far. So you'll see. I'll probably come back with this in the future and show the results.
Awesome. Thanks a lot for bringing this up, Rayana. A really interesting discussion. So it was good timing as well. Okay, this is everything from the agenda points. Does anybody has anything to add, to ask? Otherwise, we can go and get ready for the UX conversations. Should be an exciting session. See you all there in 13 minutes. Thanks a lot for presenting. Thanks a lot for feedback.